Well, it was a much different time. Um, I was playing high school baseball. I was playing local summer baseball. I was playing up, I guess you would say, meaning with older kids. I was fortunate because my father was involved as not only a coach but an organizer of what was basically a Twilight League team. And I was just turning 16 in August of that summer when I started playing with basically men. There were guys that had been in the minor leagues every now and then would show up on opposing teams. We had college players. We had guys in their 30s. My father would pinch hit once in a while, and that's when I would listen to remind me how good he could swing the bat. But now, for the most part, my recruiting was started with a tryout camp in Middletown, Connecticut. Again, that same summer, going on 16 years old, probably a little too young, a month before I should have been there. And again, that tryout camp was something that introduced me to some scouts, because my grandfather was a scout, and it did help to be in that loop. That was probably the biggest thing, was the influence on my career was growing up around scouts and professional baseball players, but not always on a professional field. It was often in an amateur setting. So whether it was a tryout camp for high school players that I would just be watching as a 12-year-old kid, or my father, having me be a bat boy.
How was the recruiting process? How did that go for you? What led to your success when getting scouted or recruited or whatnot?
Well, I started to get some attention. I want to say it was my junior year, the summer of my junior year, and I was, I remember talking on the phone to several coaches that fall. I was playing football, and there would be messages from different people. I can remember, Notre Dame calling, wanted to know if I was interested in playing football too. I said, football at Notre Dame? There's no way I could play for them. But so I had baseball schools, interested me, but not a lot down south. My first visit was to the University of Maine. They were a big powerhouse back then, just too cold. I visited some Ivy League schools where if I had played football and baseball, I would have had a chance to get in. But it just didn't feel a fit for me when I was at those schools. And then, University of North Carolina wound up being the place, after going down there in January and seeing the team outside throwing the ball around as if it was March here. And most of the players were from the Northeast, so it felt like it was a home for me. But we didn't really promote ourselves in a way where I had to make a resume or I had to make a video or do anything. It was just a world of coaches listening to professional scouts, umpires talking to each other, umpires talking to scouts. There's an underlying current of people that are sort of in the know. And even today, their players' names get spoken by certain people. And that player isn't always aware of it. He's just doing his job playing. So, I always felt like I just kind of tried to keep my head down and play hard, and hopefully somebody would take notice.
What advice would you give to let's just say a senior in high school or junior in high school that's trying to get scouted? What would you say, what advice would you give them for them or to be scouted successfully or go to the school if they want to play too?
Well, I think the biggest thing you can do is try to identify schools you want to go to. And what I mean by that is ask yourself, do I want to be at this school even if something happened and I weren't playing baseball? Because ultimately, the chances of playing Major League Baseball and making enough money so that you're set for the rest of your life is very slim. And your education is the most important thing. And I just think it's a big mistake to try to fit yourself into a program or a school just because you want to play baseball. I think it's important to know that out of 500,000 high school baseball players, there's only 25,000 that are playing in college. So that's a really tight funnel to get through. So it's important to know that it's really about an education and trying to contact those schools. I also think it's important to try to look at the roster and see where the players are from. Look at the sizes and heights and weights, and ideally, try to go see a practice. Try to go see a game. People are so busy these days; they get stuck in their own schedule, and they play at ages that are pretty much the same. And then maybe in high school you have a sophomore that's playing with seniors and things like that. But trying to see what's ahead of you, trying to watch the players that are older than you, and even if it's going to a minor league game, and you see things that might make you feel like, hey, I can do that, or I'm not quite ready for that. Maybe this school is a better fit for me. So I think it really starts with knowing yourself and getting a good evaluation, to be honest with you. And it's trying to make a plan, but it starts with knowing what you bring to the table that the coach could possibly see in you.
Okay, so what do you think that scouts look for in a player at these showcases and these clinics that they put on for recruiting? What do you think that these scouts look for in a player?
Well, obviously they're looking for the raw natural talent, what we call the 5 tools: running speed, your fielding skills, which would be soft hands, arm strength. Okay, so that means making longer throws than you're used to. And then you've got 2 in hitting, which would be hitting for contact, the ability to put the fat part of the bat on the ball consistently on many pitches in the strike zone, and then your raw power, how far or how hard can you hit the ball. And far is a little bit of a misconception. You can learn to get the ball in the air, but young players, guys I can remember like a Robin Ventura didn't hit a whole lot of home runs in the early minor leagues with a wood bat, but was hitting well over 20 for a long time. So the 5 tools, but really it's body language, how you carry yourself, how you prepare yourself. And we notice things, as they say, as soon as you walk off the bus. A good scout really does not want to be noticed. You're going to have scouts, professionally, and you're going to have college coaches. And everybody's got their own style, and everybody's got their own way of, evaluating a player. Okay, they see intangible things that just make them say, I want this guy on my team. And a lot of it can be how you prepare yourself for your sprints, how you're getting loose to throw. It's your actions and mannerisms before competition, as opposed to a lot of guys that they mill around with their hands in their pockets, not quite knowing what to do, and it almost looks as if they're not really taking it seriously. They are, but they haven't really seriously prepared themselves for it.
So branching off of that, unfortunately there's some politics with all this, and unfortunately it goes all the way down to the Little League level. What do you have to say about the politics in today's game, especially in today's age? What do you have to say about the politics that could affect a player's ability to play at a further level?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, and I've learned through my experiences, there's always politics. Looking back, there was stuff going on when I with my teammates in college, and there was stuff going on with my own son's experience. And I hate to say it, but I kind of thought the politics would end when you got to high school and you thought that you had to earn your right to play. But there's a lot of pressure that gets put on coaches, and there's also finding out that college coaches get emails throughout the seasons from parents, and I just don't understand. Your son is getting a scholarship. It's almost like kind of a job, and I don't really think, the politics do the kids any favor. I think the best thing you can do is speak with your actions and as an athlete, which is to play and to perform and to worry about the things you can control. We really can't control things. I think one of the things I'm happy I was able to do as a parent was make my son speak for himself on his own behalf when he had issues, and not to try to get mixed up in politics. Hard not to, but I think one of the beauty of sports is just do it on the field. But it's a frustrating thing, but it is part of life. It's everywhere.
Okay, so obviously you were fortunate enough to play at the professional level after college. What was kind of your way that you went about your everyday life in the major leagues that led to the success that you had?
Well, a lot of it was more learning the everyday stuff in the minor leagues. And then there's getting to the major leagues is one thing, staying there is another. It was a challenge for me to stay there. I do feel good about the fact that I was able to recover from 3 elbow surgeries and get back to the major leagues. I think everybody has things they look back on and kind of wish things had gone differently, but it was learning how to be a professional in the minor leagues, from just quality coaches, quality teammates, quality front office personnel, and you realize that your confidence comes from your preparation. You can't sit around and wait for success and results to have confidence. You train and you feel like you've done your homework and you're ready to face the challenges. You're gonna have worries and fears and doubts and anxiousness like most people, but the more time you put in and the more you feel like you've committed yourself to something, the better you feel about yourself stepping in the box or making pitches on the mound. And that's all part of development in the minor leagues, and then becomes a continuing process through the major leagues, and you just can't stop working. You think you can stay based upon what you've done so far, but the game is constantly changing. The players are adjusting to you. The next step is to adjust back to them, and to like for instance, I remember facing Nolan Ryan for the first time in Texas, and as a left-handed hitting catcher backup, I really was there because I could hit a fastball, and I just missed a fastball that Ryan had thrown me, and I flew out deep to the warning track in right field. And looking back on it, I didn't see a whole lot of fastballs for strikes the rest of my at-bats against Nolan Ryan, which were probably somewhere around 20, less than 20, I don't know.
So what would you say would be some of the most significant advice that you've received from a former teammate or former player that you talked to, or a former coach? What would you say was some of that more significant advice that you were able to take with you throughout your career?
Well, I've had so many coaches, and I've had so many great teammates that just led by example. Carlton Fisk, for example, Kirby Puckett. I go on and on, coming up with guys like Jack McDowell and Robin Ventura, and watching them turn into stars, and the Frank Thomas. I mean, wow, Hall of Famers now. But 2 coaches for me really made a big difference, and that was Walt Reniak as a hitter, and Rick Peterson as a catcher, and really a ball player. Rick Peterson was the first one to ever tell me to try softer, try a little easier, try so hard. Introduce some things to make me look things in a little different perspective, and just handle the ups and downs better, handle my emotions better. And Walt Reniak gave me not only time and commitment, but just what he would call ammunition to go up there and face some of the best pitchers in the world as basically a pinch hitter and backup player. So I got to thank both of those guys for that, because I took away 2 simple things: keep your head on the ball You know, no matter what, no matter who's out there, you can always just really fight to see the ball as best as you possibly can. And, you know, trying to run a pitching staff and make guys just hit the mitt, focus on the mitt, you know, and stay tuned, staying in touch with yourself, your own game, you know, never taking anything for granted, just working at it. You're either getting better every day or you're getting a little bit worse.
Okay, so just kind of to wrap up here, staying on the topic of your time in professional baseball at the White Sox, what would you say was your craziest clubhouse experience that you've had with your career?
Well, I can. My first kangaroo court experience as a rookie. I had just played it was my first major league start, and actually the lineup card up there is from that game, and I had gotten my first hit, and it was off of Dave Stewart, and it was late in the game. It was around the 7th inning, and I'm standing on home plate. I'm standing at first base, and I take my helmet off because Tony La Russa is coming out and takes Dave Stewart out of the game, and I take my lead off now, and Ozzie Guillen's the next hitter, and on the very first pitch, he hits a bouncing ball that's coming towards me as I'm trying to run to second base. And now there's one out, and I stand up and kind of raise my hands up in the air to avoid the ball, and just at that moment, it was, I believe it was Tony Phillips comes in and bends down, feels the ball, and I completely went, you know, head over heels, did a flip, lost my helmet, okay? In the process, I knock off, you know, Tony's hat, which is, of course, green and gold, okay? And he throws the ball on to first base, and it's a double play, and I hear 40,000 people just make this big, oh, and I couldn't get off the field fast enough. I was so embarrassed. So even though I'm colorblind, it's a pretty lame excuse because our colors, my helmet was navy blue with red trim, and I wound up picking up the gold and green hat of Tony Phillips, putting it on my head, start running across the field. And I'm towards the back of the pitcher's mound when I realize half the team of Oakland that's clearing the field to go to their dugout is laughing at me. And I take this hat off of my head and I throw it like a frisbee over to their dugout. And I walk into mine to put my catcher's gear back on, and Jerry Royce says, "That's going to cost you, kid." So Jerry Royce, a couple weeks later in Kangaroo Court, they fined me $25 for impersonating another player.
Wow. Wow, that's definitely unusual. I've never heard that before. But yeah, anything else you would like to show us that you have? I know you have a bat there fiddling around with in your hands. Want to tell us what that is?
Oh well, geez, you know, I had the great honor. This is a bat that was used by Bo Jackson.
Wow, Bo Jackson.
And
wow.
If you look at the handle on this thing, Bo had just enormous hands. You know, the palm of his hand, you know, like twice the thickness. And so he would hang his hand off that barrel, and he was just so strong. But you know, what an honor to be around a guy like that. Just you know, an icon. But he made people better. He made us better. Even when he couldn't perform on the field, he made us a better team with just his Bo being himself. You know, and it was just a great experience. Some of this stuff I just, you know, treasured bats from players like Carlton Fisk, Robin Ventura. I didn't collect a whole lot, but you know, I picked up a few things special along the way, but some of the stuff that's really cool is people that have grown up that have, you know, seen me play and have taken the time to write a note, ask for an autograph. They're passing stuff on to their kids, and you know. Recently managing in the Orioles system, it was kind of neat. Says, "You gave me a high five and asked if I played baseball. When I got home, I found an old baseball card of you. I'm writing to ask if you would please sign. Sincerely, Jared." You know, it's just, we've got, you know, people from all over the place. So it's pretty cool, and makes me feel special. And, you know, the things I have around here is, you know, I love my grandfather giving advice to my dad, and I love passing it on to players now too. So it's been one journey, and for a journeyman catcher.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me, taking time out to do this interview. Hopefully the BatterUp community got some value out of it, hopefully to help them succeed on their own journey. So I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.